Tom was a good boy, and I loved him. Now he's dead, and I'm very sad." Tom wanted to say, "I'm not dead," but he stayed quiet. Aunt Polly went to sleep. Tom went out the window very quietly and went back across the river. In the morning, Joe and Huck said, "We're not happy here now. We want to go home." Tom said, "Let's go home on Sunday. We can go to church. People are going to be very surprised." Sunday morning, many children were at church. They talked about the 3 boys. They were sad because their friends were dead. Becky was sad, too. Suddenly, the 3 boys walked into the church. People were very surprised, but they were very happy, too. Chapter 5. At School. Monday morning, Tom went to school. The children wanted to hear about his adventure, and Tom liked talking about it. Becky wanted to talk to Tom, but he didn't look at her. Then Tom talked to Amy. Becky watched him, and she was angry. She said to her friends, "I'm going to have an adventure day. You can come on my adventure." But she didn't ask Tom. Later in the morning, Tom talked to Amy again. Becky talked to her friend, Alfred, and looked at a picture book with him. Tom watched them, and he was angry with Becky. In the afternoon, Tom waited for Becky at the school fence. He said, "I'm sorry." But Becky didn't listen to him. She walked into the schoolroom. The teacher's new book was on his table. This book wasn't for children, but Becky wanted to look at it. She opened the book quietly and looked at the pictures. Suddenly, Tom came into the room. Becky was surprised. She closed the book quickly, and it tore. Becky was angry with Tom and quickly went out of the room. Then the children and the teacher came into the room and went to their places. The teacher looked at his book. "Who did this? Who tore my book?" he asked angrily. The room was very quiet. The teacher started to ask every child, "Did you do this?" They answered, "No, I didn't." Then he looked at Becky. "Becky, did you do this?" Tom wanted to help her. Suddenly he said, "I did it. I tore your book." "Tom Sawyer, you're a very bad boy. Stay here after school," the teacher said angrily. At 5 o'clock, Tom started to walk home. Becky waited for him at the school fence. "You're a very good friend," she said. Tom smiled at her, and they walked home. Chapter 6. The Trial. Summer vacation started, and Becky went away with her family. Tom was unhappy. Then Muff Potter's trial started. Tom and Huck remembered the night in the graveyard. They were afraid of Injun Joe again. Did you talk about the night in the graveyard? Tom asked Huck. No, I didn't, Huck answered. Did you? No, Tom answered. But I'm sorry about Muff Potter. He's always friendly to us. He didn't kill the doctor. I want to help him. Let's take some food to him, Huck said. The boys visited Muff Potter. Here's some food, they said. Muff Potter said, Thank you. You're good boys. Tom and Huck went to the trial and listened for 2 days. Tom didn't sleep well at night because he wanted to help Muff Potter. On day 3 of the trial, Tom talked. A man asked him, Where were you on the night of June 17th? I was in the graveyard, Tom answered. Did you see any people there? The man asked. Yes, Injun Joe, the doctor, and Muff Potter were there. They didn't see me because I was behind some big trees. What did you see? The man asked. Injun Joe and the doctor talked angrily, Tom answered. Then Injun Joe killed the doctor with his knife. Muff Potter didn't do it. The people at the trial were surprised. Injun Joe quickly went out of the building. Tom and Huck were very afraid. Tom said, Now Injun Joe knows about us. He can kill us, too. Many people wanted to hear about the boys' adventure in the graveyard. Tom liked talking about it. He was happy, too, because he helped Muff Potter. But he didn't sleep well because he was afraid of Injun Joe. Chapter 7. Injun Joe's Treasure. One Saturday afternoon, Tom wanted to have an adventure because he didn't want to think about Injun Joe. He went to Huck and said, I'm going to look for treasure. Do you want to come with me? Huck always liked an adventure. Oh, yes, he said. Where can we look? Let's start looking in the old house near Mrs. Douglas's house. Old houses are good places for treasure, Tom answered. The boys went to the old house. They wanted to look at every room. First, they went into the kitchen, and then they went into the bedroom. Suddenly, 2 men came into the kitchen, Injun Joe and his friend. The boys were afraid and stayed in the bedroom very quietly. Injun Joe walked across the kitchen. We can put our money here, he said to his friend. He started to dig under the floor with his knife. What's this? Injun Joe said. I'm going to get it out. There was a big box under the floor. He opened it with his knife. There was a lot of money in the box. Look at that money, his friend said. Let's go now. We can come back and get it tomorrow. No, Injun Joe said. We're going to take it with us now. We can take it to that place. You know, the place under the cross. Then the men went out of the house. Injun Joe talked quietly to his friend. The boys listened and were afraid. Tom said, "Did you hear that? He wants to kill us." They went out of the house quietly and went home. The boys were afraid of Injun Joe, but they wanted to find his treasure. They watched his house every night, but they didn't see Injun Joe or his treasure. Chapter 8. Becky's Adventure Day. In August, Becky's family came back from their vacation. Tom was very happy, and he didn't think about Injun Joe's treasure. Becky's Adventure Day was Saturday. Her mother said, "You can sleep at Susie Harper's house after your adventure." "Good," Becky said. Becky and her friends went on the river on a big boat. The boat went down the river and across it. Then it stopped. The children went out of the boat and played games near the river. In the afternoon, one boy asked, "Who wants to go to the big cave?" The children went to the cave. It was dark and cold there, but they played games. In the evening, they went back to the boat and went home. Sunday morning, Becky's mother and Aunt Polly talked to Mrs. Harper at church. Becky's mother asked, "Where's my Becky? Did she sleep at your house?" "No, she didn't," Mrs. Harper answered. "I didn't see her." Aunt Polly said, "My Tom didn't come home. Did he stay at your house?" "No, he didn't," Mrs. Harper answered. Then Aunt Polly and Becky's mother asked the children, "Did Tom and Becky come home? Did you see them on the boat?" The children answered, "No, we didn't see them, but it was dark." Then a boy said, "Maybe they're in the cave." 200 men looked for Tom and Becky in the cave. They looked for 3 days, but they didn't find them. People in the town were very sad. Chapter 9. Huck's Adventure. Huck didn't go on Becky's adventure. He stayed home and watched Injun Joe's house that night. At 11 o'clock, Injun Joe and his friend came out and walked down the street. There was a box in his friend's hands. Huck said quietly, "Maybe that's the treasure box." He went after the 2 men. They walked to Mrs. Douglas's house and stopped in her yard. Huck stayed behind some small trees. The men talked, and Huck listened to them. Injun Joe was angry. "I want to kill her," he said to his friend.